Open Final Cut Pro and click on your already created C226 library and make a new event called Players Pub Jazz. Import all the jazz clips into it. Be sure to select the copy option so that you have a duplicate of the files. Click on the List Mode icon above the media files to show them as lists, not film. Sometimes it's easier to find footage that way. Make a project and name it Jazz Project. Go to your workspace under the Window menu and select Default so yours will look normal. You will start with your VO and build around it. Bring in your VO by selecting it in the event browser and dragging it down into the timeline. If you don't see audio meters on the right, hold down Command plus Shift plus 8. You can toggle them off and on. It's important to be aware that your levels are consistent. For this exercise, we want all our audio to fall between -12 and -6. Our VO is recorded a little bit lower than that. You can see that by playing it. To increase it, click on the line and drag it up to about 12 decibels. You can also be more precise by clicking on the clip and changing the volume by hitting Ctrl+ or Ctrl-. Now the VO should be about the same level as the A roll and the B roll, but you will need to tweak them as you go. Play your video all the way through to make sure those levels are consistent. That's vital. Once you lay down your VO, you will cut in your SOTs, your A roll. To know where to go on the timeline, I will give you some approximate numbers based on the SMPT time code, which was defined by the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, hence SMPTE. It goes as follows: hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. Don't be confused between seconds and frames. If it says 11 on the last number, it's not 11 seconds, it's 11 frames. Let's go to around 19 seconds into the timeline, where right after the VO says what it's like starting out. That's where you will cut in your first SOT. Now you are going to edit the SOT you want to use. Find SOT-TC4 and scrub it to about 238 to where he says, what am I doing? And drag it all the way to the end. Click the second editing icon on top of the timeline. As you can see from the icon, it will paste the SOT right where your cursor is. Now you'll cut your second SOT. Move your cursor to 00004228. Find Monica Herzig's SOT-MH1 in the event browser and click on the second editing icon, or you can hit W. Her SOT is about 20 seconds, so let's show her for the first 10, and then place some B-roll over her showing what she is talking about, which is the communal nature of jazz. Move your cursor to about halfway through Monica's SOT and place on top the clip called B-MS-Taking Turns. Find it, select it, and hit the first editing icon. This one puts the B-roll on top, so you can still hear what she is saying in the A-roll, but you'll be seeing the clip that you just selected. Combine that with a second clip that shows a closer shot of the red-haired sax player. That one is called B-TS-Helping Out. These are chosen because they show Tom Clark and the older musician helping out other musicians, which goes with what Monica's saying.
Kind of show the repertoire and the type of things to the younger ones, and it's a way to try out and see how it fits in. And it's just...
You need to turn down the volume on the B-roll, so bring it down to approximately negative 21 decibels. Bring down the second clip to negative 21 too. But use your Option key to make a keyframe at the end of Monica's SOT. You'll bring up the sound of the B-roll and let his solo play for a few seconds.
I have this communal gathering.
Herzig has toured all over the world with...
You're going to select the other arrow-like tool that is actually the position tool. Notice that it doesn't always snap back to the other items when you move things with it.
Herzig has toured all over the world with...
You'll cut in another SOT of Herzig at 1:18:23 or so, where she talks about being nervous. Move the cursor there and find the clip called SOT-MH3. Hit the W key to splice it in. That's the keyboard shortcut for the icons you've been clicking on. After you splice it in, you'll notice there's a gap of blank space before the VO resumes. You will cut it out with the blade tool. Hit a B and cut right before you see the audio level go up where the VO begins again. Cut back to the arrow tool and click on that blank VO clip. Hit delete. You'll see the clip slide backward to fill that space. After the VO says that jazz demands a spontaneity that other music doesn't, around 1:30, cut in SOT-MH1.
Spontaneity that more informal music doesn't. Musician John Layton says listening and improvising can at times be a little overwhelming.
After the VO says overwhelming, cut in SOT-JKL1.
There's a bit of, like, I guess kind of noise about, oh, what are the people thinking?
Bloomington High School North student Dominic Ross says it's important to keep the solos simple.
Go to immediately after the VO says, keep solos simple, and splice in Dominic Ross's SOT-DR3.
Always stick to like what you know, and like when you're listening to like a more skilled or advanced musician, and try like take a few ideas from something that's more basic and try to avoid like going into a complicated stuff.
Cut his sot at stuff.
Clark says the crowd support means a lot.
After the VO says, the crowd support means a lot, then cut in sot SOT-TC7.
Audience is huge in how a musician feels on stage. You know, if you're up there pouring your heart out and all you hear is crickets coming from the crowd, it's you know, you wonder, well, what did I do wrong?
And of course, the musicians support each other.
After the VO says, support each other, cut in SOT-JKL3.
You know, they're like, you know, we'll always be talking to each other, and
Add some B-roll on top of that part of the VO continuing to Layton's sot that shows that support. Use the clip of him nodding in approval called B-TS-supporting. And bring down the volume so we can hear him.
Well, what did I do wrong?
And of course, the musicians support each other.
you know, usually if you think somebody did something good in their solo, you know, you'll talk to them afterwards, say, hey, that was a good solo.
You don't want to end on a sot if possible. So instead, we'll end John's sot by fading in the ending B-roll clip of everyone on stage. Search for the BWS-full stage clip. And place it below the sot so that you can see Layton, but hear the music starting to increase.
You know, it's a very positive community. I really enjoy it.
Now that we've laid in the VO track and the sots, let's go back and fill in the B-roll with clips that we've written to, matched in our script. We have some footage of everyone on stage, so that will go in the beginning. You want to have a few seconds of B-roll to start your piece, so you'll need to select the position tool and select all your files. Move all the files forward 4 seconds on the timeline. Now you need to bring in your clip. Search for the BWS-full stage clip and set the end point at the beginning and go to approximately 11 seconds before hitting an out point. You'll need to bring down the sound when the VO comes in, so Option-click twice around the area you need to bring the volume down to approximately negative 24 decibels.
It's Sunday at the Players Pub Jazz Jam. High school students crowd the stage, hoping for a chance to solo.
Now let's go back and fill in the other B-roll. Back at the beginning, when the VO mentions Tom Clark, you need to show a fairly tight shot of him. Then you'll run a little sequence of shots. Call up the B-TS-Clark-Directing. TS stands for two shot. And cut that in. Then cut in the wider shot called B-WS-Clark-Directing and run that about 2.5 seconds, making sure we see him smiling and pointing. Then cut in B-Clark-LS-soloing for a few seconds until you hear, but he still remembers what it's like starting out, where you'll run another tight shot of him, B-Clark-MS-soloing. For the next section, you'll introduce Monica Herzig. You want to provide a few seconds of her soloing before returning to the VO, so select your P tool, zoom out, and select all the clips past the VO. Drag them a few seconds to the right. Then place her clip B-MS-Herzig-soloing and have the volume play at negative 6 decibels until the VO comes back in which situation you'll bring the volume down to negative 24 decibels.
IU professor Monica Herzig organizes.
When the VO starts to talk about Herzig's touring, bring in the clip called B-MS-Herzig-soloing 2 and run it until her next SOT. Lower the volume to negative 24 decibels. Since the VO mentions her experience, let's bring in her photos of her past. First, you'll place Herzig_photo.jpg for approximately 2 seconds, and then you'll bring in the Bibelbrox_band.jpg. You'll do a Ken Burns effect on the image. By clicking on the image and clicking on the crop icon below the preview panel. Select the Ken Burns effect and have the image scroll to the top by dragging the ending square to the top where you can see Monica.
To have this communal gathering.
Herzig has toured all over the world with her band Bibelbrox, opening for Bette Midler, Yes, and Sting, among others. She too remembers what these musicians are feeling.
After Herzeg's Sot, when the VO mentions spontaneity, cover it with the clip B-TS-improvising. Lower the volume to negative 24 decibels. We'll introduce Dominic by showing him playing the solo. Move all the clips down to the right by using the P tool and bring in B-CU-Dominic-solo to cover the VO referring to him. When the VO discusses the audience, move the files down a few seconds so you can see 5 seconds of the B-roll B-WS-audience.
Complicated stuff.
Clark says the crowd support means a lot.
When the VO mentions musicians supporting each other, cover that with the clip B-TS-supporting. Layton's Sot needs trimming, so cut out the part where he says, and you know, a lot of that is just spent talking about how certain things went.
And you know, a lot of that is spent just talking about how certain things went and.
And cover the jump cut with the clip B-musicians-talking.
Say, hey, that was a good solo. You know, it's a very positive community. I really enjoy it.
Play the entire piece through, watching to make sure your audio levels stay the same, your cuts aren't too abrupt, and it flows well. You notice that the opening footage was shot with a crooked tripod. You can fix it by rotating the footage slightly. Select the clip and click on the film icon in the upper right. Go to rotation and change it to 3%. Now the footage is angled, so unfortunately some of it is missing in the corners. Make the footage a little bit larger by scaling it to 112%. Be careful not to do much more than 115%, or your footage will start to look blurry. Now you can add titling and lower thirds that identify people. Click at the beginning of the video and click on the T in the upper left-hand side. Tom Clark said his goal is to never play the solo the same way twice. So you'll name it Never the Same Way Twice. And Players Pub Jazz Jam below it with a separate title. Move the top one up and make it significantly larger. Once you have created the titles, make your first lower third. Go to Tom Clark's first SOT and select the basic lower third from the title bin. Write Tom Clark and jazz musician. Repeat the lower thirds for Monica Herzog, John Layton, Dominic Ross the first time they talk. Leave it up long enough for your audience to read it aloud. To export it, you want to hit an end point at the beginning, then move your cursor all the way to the end of it and hit an O for out. Go to your share icon under File, and you're going to select the C226 for WordPress option. When you get the dialog box, type in your last name _ first name _ video, and then go ahead and share it. Now, it's not going to share immediately. It's going to take a while for it to export. So you can go back to your screen and call up background tasks and look and see how it's doing. Once it generates the file, you're going to be ready to upload it to WordPress.